talking about how to be visible when you feel vulnerable. Now, before we jump in, if we haven't met, hey, my name is Sarah Michelle Brown, and I'm a virtual video director. And um, I'm really quite excited about diving into this topic today because I know it's a scary one for a lot of people of like, when do I put myself out there when I'm going through stuff? And if you're already nervous on camera, it's just multiplied, that fear. So say hello, let me know where you're joining me from, and um, let's get started. Okay, so first of all, before we dive into how to be visible when you feel vulnerable, let's dive into the question of, should you be visible in tough times? Okay, or should you like not be telling the world what you're going through? So it's a question that I think a lot of entrepreneurs wrestle with because, you want to be transparent, but yet, how much is too much? Okay. So number one, there's some questions that you can answer. Number one is, can you share, this part of your story from a place of generosity so that it's actually not about you? It's not about you unleashing your emotions or unleashing your story on your audience without giving forethought of, okay, can I share from a place of generosity? Okay, so that's the first question to ask. Um, the next thing I want you to do, number two, is to do a mental health check-in. We are living in extraordinary times. We are dealing with pandemics, just pandemic. I said that in a plural. No plural pandemics. We're dealing with a pandemic. Um, here we are just starting to come out of a lockdown. We'll see how it goes. People have lost people this year. Some people have lost a lot of people this year, as in like the last year and a half. And you feel all the feels. And it's like, before you start to put that part of your journey and that perspective out there, I want you to check in with yourself, do that mental health check-in and say like, okay, how am I doing? Is this actually something I am in a position to share right now? Okay. Number three, the third question to ask yourself when you're deciding whether you should put yourself out there or not, when you feel vulnerable, when you've got like a lot going on, the third question to ask is, will you damage yourself or others in some way by putting your story out there? So, for example, um, I was scrolling through Facebook and all of a sudden I came across this image, and it was from this person's life, and it was just kind of put out there with no trigger warnings or anything, and it was just kind of like seeing this image that just took the wind out of my lungs. It took the air out of my lungs. It was so triggering. And so when you are posting your stories and you're feeling vulnerable, but you feel it's important to share with people, you need to ask yourself, will I be damaging the mental health of other people by posting this? Have I put sufficient trigger warnings of what I'm about to share? Um, I think goes a really long way in, answering that third question. Okay. So for those watching live or in the replay, let me know what's coming up for you. Does this make sense to you? Are you like, yes, that's a good check-in for me. Let me know with a yes if this is all making sense. Okay. Number four, a really important question to ask yourself, on that thing of, should I be sharing this thing that is so vulnerable, that I feel very vulnerable about, is to ask yourself, how does this share help my audience? Okay? Write it down. How does this share help my audience? And actually, guys, I'm gonna start getting ready because I have an interview for my podcast in 50 minutes. So y'all are gonna join me for a vulnerable share as I get ready. But I think, something that is really key here is asking yourself, like, does this share help my audience? How? Like be very clear about it. So um, for example, um, my dear dad passed away last year, and sorry, I'm looking for my stuff. Oh my gosh, you would get such a kick out of me like doing my makeup while talking about this stuff, but uh, I don't mind. So yeah, my dad passed away last year, and we're coming up to almost the year mark right now. Um, the 21st will be a year since we lost him. And when I, um, what's the word? Sorry, when I decided, hello, it's crazy, but when I decided to share something about that experience of losing him, I was very careful and clear about, how I shared, and how does this share help my people? So, with my video clients who are, putting themselves out there, I know it's a big question of like, what about those times when life is just too much? Do you put yourself out there um, during those times, or do you just, hibernate and do a thing that's just for you and let that family time just be family time? I get it. I get it because, putting yourself out there is definitely not easy at the beginning for a lot of people. And when you have that big thing happening in your life, asking yourself, um, does this help people if I share this? Or is this just like, I'm just going to add to um, their stress? Or is it going to make them feel like you're sharing it just for yourself or catharsis, that type of thing? Um, it's really important to understand, how does it help? So for example, again, for me, for today, posting this and even just like putting my face on today, um, I just decided, you know what, I'm just going to show up and help my peeps with um, dealing with stuff that comes up, and how do you do that? How visible are you? So, when my dad passed away on Father's Day last year, I had a bunch of clients lined up. Oh my gosh, this makeup is crazy, guys. I'm trying to do too much at once, I think. Um, but when my dad passed away, it was like I had to take a really hard look at um, myself and ask, like, does this help my audience right now? And the answer was no for a long time. I let my people know that he did pass away, but um, I didn't really go into all the feels on it. I just wasn't ready to share it. So for you, as you are um, navigating these strange times that we're in, this makeup looks crazy, y'all. This could be the crazy podcast makeup. Let me just try and blend some. And I guess it's kind of like an add-on to this talk about visibility and vulnerability is to, if you're doing a video and it's about loss, let's say you want to let your people know about loss, you don't just have to show up and be sad because within the grief is a lot. There's a lot of um, connection and beauty and love that is part of the grieving process. So it's a-okay to be um, yourself. Okay. So one thing that I want you to know as far as, um, you know, when you've decided you're okay and you can be visible, it's going to be good, it's going to be helpful to your people, um, you know, then you can go ahead and start asking yourself, okay, how am I going to be visible? Okay. So, number one, um, that I find really helpful whenever I have times of extreme visibility or any visibility during times when my vulnerability is at its highest, like actually now. So I'm actually going through a time of high visibility where I am talking to so many people about my podcast and then interviewing people for the podcast. Like, it's a lot. I had 70 people sign up to chat with me in May, and it's been extremely busy for me personally. So increasing my self-care in order to be able to match it to the level of visibility and vulnerability I'm experiencing is has been so important. And I've even gone to the extent of um, Fridays are like nothing. Like I take Friday off for the most part nowadays. And Mondays I keep really gentle as well because I know Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday are going to be slammed with client work and with, filming for my podcast. Um, One thing I will share with you is, sorry, I'm holding this up here. One thing I will share with you, and if you have any makeup tips, because I think my chin is looking crazy. It's like this crazy chin. If you have any tips to fix that, let me know. Like I can do my makeup, but sometimes it's like, girl, what happened? Um, so anyhow, so for me, with this first anniversary of my dad passing coming up so soon, we're 6 days away from it. Um, I have, hold on. I have really had to up my self-care. And with all of these interviews going on for my podcast, it's just been like, um, I have to show up and I have to be there. I have to be present and be as vulnerable as my guest is. So it's been really, what's the word? It's been a lesson for me in taking care of myself because um, while I didn't plan to be talking to 70 people and then interviewing a ton of people after that, it's important for me and it's important for my business. I kind of feel like this time right now is for my dad. So I'm making sure to take care of myself and rock that self-care, hardcore, the hardcore self-care, so that I'm able to do this. Okay. So let's do a little sidebar before we move on to the next point. When it comes to putting yourself out there, and especially when you feel vulnerable about it, what's so important about the process is that you are coming from a place where you truly believe that this is the right thing to do. That being visible, putting yourself out there, sharing the tough stuff is not just right for you, but right for your people, which kind of harkens to the earlier point I made in the question of should you put yourself out there. But I just want to reiterate that it's so important that it's not about you, that it's about your peeps. Um, okay, so let's move on to the next point of how to be vulnerable or how to be visible. How to be vulnerable when you're visible. I think that just goes hand in hand. How to be visible when you're vulnerable. Point number two is um, that you take control of the level of visibility and vulnerability. Okay, that you have the control there of how much you share of what you're going through. Like I'm open about that this is a tough time for me and my family. Like it's very surreal. Um, just like that my dad died, I still don't really, it hasn't fully processed. And I think part of that is because of the times that we're living in. And I've spoken to so many people who are grieving right now who have had like similar experiences where they're like, yeah, it just all feels surreal. And, I keep expecting to see my dad and um, his mannerisms and everything is just so in my heart and so present every single day since he's died. But at the same time, I have a business that I need to keep going. And I have clients who are scared to put themselves out there or who are ready to really go professional with their videos. Um, I get to decide and keep control of how visible and vulnerable I am so that I'm able to serve but still be transparent, you know? I think transparency when it comes to putting yourself out there in visible, like tender tender spots, um, it doesn't mean that you're gonna go on camera and sob your heart out, which I could easily do. Make no mistake. This is a really hard time, and um, I think going fully into the grief, is not something that's helpful for my people right now. So, we get to control how we show up and how vulnerable we are, and decide what stories we share and what parts of what stories we share. Okay. So, know that if you're in it right now, if you're in that vulnerable place right now, and you're wondering about, do I share this story of what I'm going through? Go back to the beginning and ask those questions of yourself, okay? And know that you have 100% control over um, your visibility during that time. When my dad passed away, and it was Father's Day last year, well, that's a lot of gold. I've discovered something, guys. I am not good at teaching while doing my makeup. Anyhow, when he passed away last year, I shut down everything for a solid 2 months, I think. You did not see me online. I was just like, I need to take care of myself, my family. I need to grieve, and I really did not um, put voice to what I was experiencing, and that was a choice that I made. And um, just remember, you get to take control over how much you reveal. Okay. And for example, in the podcast that is launching in the fall, um, it's called Express Yourself for Big Dreaming Entrepreneurs. And it is really about, you know, visibility, putting yourself out there, and also the importance of listening. Um, but fun fact, um, in the first week when all these people started booking calls with me, and it was just like all of a sudden all my time was gone, and it was just like pre-interviews, and many of which turned into interviews for the podcast. It was a lot to pile on, particularly at this time. And one thing that developed, and my doctor says, "Oh, it's a stress response," but I've had this strange thing going on with my jaw, where it feels like I'm stuttering, I'm losing control of my jaw. And it translates as me looking for my thoughts, essentially. That's what it looks like, or me stumbling over my words. So if you're watching this and you're like, seeing me going, that's me with this stress response. Um, and I think that all comes from um, just everything, the world right now. But I'm not stopping my podcast. I'm open about it in it. I talk about it with my guests. And I think, you know, allowing yourself to be vulnerable, even even when you don't have control over your jaw, it's still your choice. And my choice was, well, I'm not gonna not do these interviews. I'm gonna continue on, and the jaw thing is the jaw thing, and I'm okay with that. Okay, while I can't control it, I can't control like, am I going to do this or not? Okay, so no, it's all in your control. Let me know in the comments if this is aligning with you, if this is making sense to you. Just type in a little old yes, okay? And that's for you if you're watching live in the replay. All right, so the third point around how to put yourself out there when you're feeling vulnerable is, and this is a really important part, is to prep before you are filming, okay? Um, and the type of prep that you do, and it's like a warm up. All my students have warm ups to do, but when it comes to prep, base it on the type of video that you're going to be making. So, how's this looking, guys? It's looking okay-ish. So, if you're doing a video and you are, oops, sorry. If you're doing a video and it's going to be a very vulnerable video, like the video itself is going to be tender and um, uh, open-hearted, ways to get yourself into that mood, get into the mood. Yeah, include things like meditating, getting in touch with your breath, make sure you're breathing. Deep breaths, like right down into your belly, and giving nice big sighs. So if you take a deep breath in, even vocalizing it helps to get rid of some of the energy that is feeling vulnerable and scared. Okay. Um, Another way to prep if you're going to be doing a very, very, very vulnerable share is to get out in nature, go for a walk, um, get your body moving a little bit, and um, have some comfort things around you. So I have like I love this mug, write your own story, and inside it says be you. Mhm. I have another comfort item here, which is so silly, but it's this little unicorn squishy that I made with one of my nieces. And I just keep it like whenever I'm doing something that can touch upon family, when it comes to my videos, I always keep this nearby. And for me, that moment of, what am I sharing, and having those touchstones around you that give you comfort and strength are really important. Okay. I have over on this side, I'm not going to move the camera and everything, but over here I have a bunch of mementos that, are belong to my dad. And I just, take a look at them and to just allow myself to experience the love because that's what I want to share. So while I'm teaching you about vulnerability, I'm actually also being vulnerable myself. And, um, when you do put yourself out there and allow people to see parts of you that you don't normally have on display, um, it helps to make you feel like the real person that you are. We are not perfect beings. We have times where we feel scared. We have times when we feel anxious, sad, deeply sad, depressed, like in pain, you know, vulnerable injuries. There's so many different ways that can be vulnerable in our lives. And doing that prep time, put some touchstones around you, particularly if it's a vulnerable share that may go into the fields, it's important to have those touchstones around that give you strength. Okay. And the breathing will help a lot as well. Make sure that you give yourself time before you film to do some deep breathing, do those vocal sighs. So it's actually just expelling energy out of your body, and give yourself permission to be where you're at. Okay. Be honest about it. But again, this only comes after you've gone through all the checklists of the other stuff. Okay. Because when you do vulnerable shares, you want to make sure that you are doing it in a way that is aligned with your business, is aligned with your clients, and is also a level of vulnerability that you are ready and willing to share, and that it's healthy, not just for you, but also for your audience. Okay. um, Let me know when you like if you had a aha from this chat. This I was going to say fireside chat, but really it's like a set side chat. um, Let me know in the comments like what made you go, oh, okay, okay. Let me know. Um, and then when it comes to the prep, hold on, I'm like holding all this stuff. I really cannot talk and do my makeup at the same time, y'all. Like, it's like hardly done, and that's 20 minutes. But, you have permission to um, be vulnerable, and you have permission to not be vulnerable. So the other type of vulnerability, so that was the jaw thing just happening. But the other end of vulnerability is when you're showing up more like how I am today, where you are sharing a lesson. This is a very meta lesson because we're talking about vulnerability while being vulnerable. But when you are, showing up and the share is going to be more playful or more educational. Allow yourself to warm up ahead of time, do some dancing, get yourself into a mood or like if you've got injuries or whatever, do whatever kind of movement that helps to lift your spirits, brings more energy into your system, and you're ready to share that vulnerable share in a way that comes from love, but also from a higher energy. Okay, does that make sense? Let me know. So, all right, what do I need to do, guys? My makeup. This is I definitely have learned that I need to be more organized about my makeup before I do makeup on camera again because y'all, this is a hot mess. Like, I'm surprised I haven't just like run like an eyebrow up into the heavens, like worst type of makeup. Um, but I'd like to share. Um, so that's the training around how to be visible when you're feeling vulnerable. And I would like to share a little bit about, um, you know, how we as a family are dealing with loss during this time. Um, because I think just so many people are processing loss. Even if you haven't lost someone in your family, looking at the numbers of how many people have passed away is just jaw dropping. And even if you feel like you're not, I'm not grieving, the entire world is grieving right now. Um, but it's showing up in different ways. Like for me, it's like this jaw thing where all of a sudden I lose control of my jaw. It's like, what's going on there? For other people, it could be, getting really freaked out by the pandemic and all the craziness that's been happening and just feeling closed in. That vulnerability and the loss shows up in so many ways for people. But I want to share something that my mom is actually doing. Where the family, oh gosh, I hope this is working, guys, because I'm not really seeing my face terribly well. Oh, so funny. But my mom is creating these photo albums for the family, the close family. And uh, she's creating these books for all of us. And what is really beautiful about it, we're all going to be together um, next this coming weekend. The family's coming together in the backyard, social distancing and doing all that. But oops, sorry. But we're coming together to celebrate my dad, you know, um, hoping for a beautiful day. And we're going to come together and tell um, stories about him and how he made us laugh. He was so funny, larger than life personality, and he would pull these faces. He was just freaking hilarious. Hold on. Kathy says, yes, give yourself permission to grieve. Absolutely. Grieving takes time. There are going to be good days and bad days. Don't sweep it under the rug and pretend to be Superwoman. Amen. Hallelujah. Kathy, 100%. I completely agree with you. It's important, I think, to um, create some space. Now, this is kind of one of those, as I say, not what, as I do kind of moments because, I've been solidly booked doing pre-interviews for my podcast all through May. Like I had probably about 15 interviews per week at least. Um, and we've transitioned into doing some of the podcast interviews proper, like for the actual podcast. And those now are probably about 10 a week. plus client time, did I mention? So, I don't have a lot of space right now to actually grieve, but, it comes out the way that it does, you know? For me, it's manifested in my job, losing control. That's also partly from stress, from talking to all these people while I'm feeling vulnerable. Um, and while this first anniversary of him dying is, just around the corner, so, um, I think not denying that you're going through like, if it's something this big, I think that vulnerability piece, sharing it with your audience, um, is can actually be not just for you, a powerful experience, it can be powerful for them as well. But go through my checklist that I gave you, earlier to make sure that what you're sharing is something that's not, too far too far gone for them, okay, or just, will do damage to them or is of no interest to them at all, okay? Um, the last piece I wanna share about how to put yourself out there when you're feeling vulnerable is, something that I like to bring to all my videos because I think well, I know my dream clients tend to start off feeling very scared of the camera, so I always bring a lot of humor to it. Um, and, in life, even the worst things that can happen, I think it's important to be able to find humor. And that doesn't mean like you're cracking jokes about the experience, not at all. Um, but uh, where did I just put it? Guys, I need to get organized. I think because I've had like just so much going on, like my desk, my makeup should be in this nice little rolly carousel I have, but like sprawled on my desk is my makeup. It's just so silly. Um, and highlighter, look at that. That's a little much. But finding humor while you are talking about something that's vulnerable is actually very human. So know that if you are, wanting to share a piece of your story, it's a-okay to be human. We don't want to be in the thick of the thing all the time. We want to be able to have breaks from it. We want to be able to laugh and to um, be human. Okay, I'm trying to find lipstick, guys. Okay, I'm gonna use this one. It's like from Fenty, and I just love it so much. It's gorgeous. There's also, I think, a thing around, when big things happen, um, deciding where you stand on something, like what something is something that's happened in the world. Because Lord knows we've had something happening in the world, major things happening in the world for so long. And if it's something that you want to give your perspective on, you feel it's vulnerable and helpful for your audience, um, then, one thing I mentioned humor, but to find the humanity in the issue, um, to be curious and to be open, okay? Because I know, like, we've all been through that step as well. Okay, guys, so my face is sort of together. I think I need to fix my hair before the podcast, but thank you for joining me. And I will, I didn't see any more comments coming in, but I will check them if they come in or when they come in the replay. Um, quick summary of what you just learned. You discovered my 4 tips for um, looking at questioning, should I do this? Should I share this vulnerable thing? And number one was, can you share from a place of generosity? And know that it's not about you, it's about your audience. Number two was a mental health check-in, make sure you're okay to share this. Number three, will it damage myself or others? It's always something to make sure that you ask because you don't want to put something harmful into the world with your video. So number four was, how does this share help my audience? Really ask yourself that question. And when it comes to being visible when you're vulnerable, you learned my 4 tips about, number 1, increasing your self-care during that time, when your visibility and vulnerability are higher. And, number 2 is take control of your level of visibility and vulnerability. You get to own that, you get to control it. Number 3 is to prep yourself before filming, warm yourself up for the type of energy that you want to have available when you're filming, okay? Number 4 was to, make space for humor, allow it to be there. Life is not just pain, life is not just loss, though it may feel like it, these days, but to allow your beautiful humanity to shine through is always a beautiful thing. Okay, so this is Sarah Michelle Brown here, your virtual video director. I want you to comment below and let me know what your biggest takeaway was or, what you related to the most. All right, that's it. Like I said, Sarah Michelle Brown here, your virtual video director signing off, and I just wanna say, dream up, press record, and